Guys, a few stops late to this bandwagon, but it seems that most J-vloggers out there seem to be doing a review of The Amazing Spider-Man once they've been to see it. I've seen reviews by TaishaJason, Ozzy, and I am Mr. 007, I think its full name is. I can never remember that one completely. But there have been a few J-vlogger reviews of The Amazing Spider-Man going around, and I've just got back from seeing it. And I'm going to make this a video response to TaishaJason's video review because it's the first one that I saw. I've just watched it back now, and Jason's movie reviews are some of my favourites on YouTube, and I generally agree with a lot of what he has to say. And I realised that most of the things I wanted to say about this movie actually maybe were slightly disagreeing with him at times. Although a lot of what he said I do agree with, there are a few things that I did feel differently about the film, and I thought I'd bring those up here. And I'd sort of start off by saying that when they first announced that they were going to reboot Spider-Man, I was really skeptical. For me, the superhero film craze has been getting a little bit out of control. You know, all kinds of almost unheard of superheroes just having their films made simply because the studios know that if it's made from a comic book and it's got a superhero in it, people are going to turn out in droves to watch it in general. And you know, with the Incredible Hulk, it was fine. I didn't mind that because the original one was awful, and I'm not going to turn down the chance to see Edward Norton in a superhero film. And the remake was much better than the original. It wasn't brilliant. It was fairly middle of the road as the superhero movies go. But it was, you know, much better than the pile of rubbish that Eric Bana unfortunately starred in. But when they said they were going to reboot Spider-Man, you know, I sort of inhaled deeply and cringed a little because, you know, that was an excellent series. It only started, about 10 years ago, and it's only been finished a few years. Sam Raimi directed an excellent series, the third one not so great. I think a lot of people would agree with that. And they were really enjoyable films, especially number 2. I thought number 2 was excellent, like Jason said in his review. But what I will say is, I actually preferred Amazing Spider-Man to Spider-Man 2 from the original series. I agree very much with what Jason said about the fact that is it the Lizard Man? I'm not actually sure what the bad guy in the Amazing Spider-Man's official name is. I'm not really familiar with comic books beyond the movies, so I'm not actually sure what they ever say. What they ever actually give him a proper name in the film. Rhys Ifans' villain, but I think it must be the Lizard Man or something along those lines. And I would agree that he's not as good a bad guy as Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2. And I normally would say one mantra of mine has been for a long time that superhero films are only as good as their villains, and which is one reason why I wasn't a big fan of Iron Man 2, because of the very anticlimactic ending, and just sort of not really knowing where to go with it. Big reason why Spider-Man 3 was particularly weak. Venom was not a very good bad guy, in my opinion. Neither was Sandman. They didn't pull that off very well. And to be honest, Lizard Man wasn't that great. He was solid, but he wasn't anything particularly special. But the other important thing, I guess, one of the biggest things for me in any film, is the characters, the main characters and the characterization. And as much as I enjoyed the original Spider-Man series, I never particularly, even though Tobey Maguire did play a good Peter Parker, what Peter Parker is supposed to be, I just didn't like him. He was annoying. I'm not a huge Tobey Maguire fan to begin with, and his character was just pretty annoying, I found. And I wasn't a huge fan of Kirsten Dunst's Mary Jane either. But as soon as I saw that Amazing Spider-Man was going to have Andrew Garfield, who I loved in The Social Network, Emma Stone, who's great, I was a bit skeptical about her because I didn't know how she'd step up to a more, obviously it's a comic book movie, so not that serious, but out of her comfort zone of sort of teen comedies like the Superbads and Easy A's. but I thought she was really good in the film as well. In fact, I didn't think there was really a bad performance in the film from the main characters, and that for me was what made probably Amazing Spider-Man the best of the films. The final fight, okay, like I've said, the villain wasn't perhaps the best villain, but I thought the action scenes were entertaining. The final fight was good. You know, they had one of those, although a little bit far-fetched, but you know, it's a superhero movie, so what are you going to do? There was definitely one moment in the film where you're sort of sitting there going, yeah, you know, and it really gets you going, and sort of everyone pulls together. But it was, you know, it didn't stray from the formula at all. It was very much like you'd expect Spider-Man to be, but I liked it. I didn't think it was overlong, like Jason said. I actually thought it was just about right. There was no point when I thought that I particularly thought the pacing lagged, and it kept me on the edge of my seat until the end of the film. And one thing I was surprised about was the negativity towards the score, the musical score, which I thought was pretty good. I think it's James Horner, is it, that did it? Who's done all kinds of things, Avatar and Titanic, I think, and a few things. Troy, maybe, I'm not sure. And whilst I didn't think it was spectacular, my brother, who went to see it in the UK a couple of weeks ago, was absolutely blown over by the score, which I thought was a little bit overdoing it. I certainly thought it was decent music. I didn't think it was particularly detracted from it, and I thought it was pretty appropriate and decent. I'd like to hear it back, on an actual soundtrack without the film, and maybe give another opinion. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Overall, I thought it was a really, really good reboot, and it sort of kind of changed my mind on the whole reboot idea and shut me up there, because I'm very much looking forward to number 2, which is undoubtedly coming. As Jason mentioned, there's this thing in the credits at the end, which is kind of cryptic. I've never read the comic books. I don't really know what that's about either. But it definitely seems like there's going to be a sequel on the way. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. I really, really like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I like Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. And the whole film was just, it was really, really good overall. And it just about sneaks in ahead of Spider-Man 2 for me, simply because I just found the characters more likable, and I was rooting for them more. I cared more about whether Spider-Man and Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy ended up together than if Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst ever ended up together, because I didn't like either of them particularly. And and just overall it was really, really good, and highly recommended for any of you who haven't seen it. I'm sure most of you probably have that want to by this point, particularly want to, because it's been out a few weeks now. But yeah, it was good. I don't think there was anything else I particularly wanted to talk about. I agree as well about the Stan Lee cameo. I went to see it in 2D. I'm not interested in 3D. I went to see it in 2D, and glad I did, with a couple of Japanese friends with English subtitles. But the Stan Lee cameo as well had me chuckling. But my Japanese friends around me didn't have a clue what was going on, so I had to explain that to them after the film, which they thought was a nice little Easter egg. So overall, I would give it 2 thumbs up, or whatever you want to say. Really, really, really good, and I'm glad I had the chance to see it in Japan. I'm going to miss the Avengers, which I'm sure will probably be even better. There was a trailer for it before the film, and it looks fantastic. I'm sure many of you out there have seen it anyway, because it's been released everywhere else in the world. Like I said, I'm not particularly bothered about The Dark Knight Rises. I will go and see it, and I'm sure it'll be a very good film, because it's Christopher Nolan, and he's not going to get it wrong. But having seen the trailers, it doesn't excite me as much as the old ones. Bane, I'm sure will be a decent villain, but I can't see him living up to the Joker. And it all looked a little bit over the top at times. I've heard that it's not, and it's perhaps in the completely other direction. But you know, for me, some of the trailers looked like they were just going too big and too over the top, and that's, although Christopher Nolan of course can do that brilliantly, as he's shown with Dark Knight Rises and Inception stuff, he's a better director than that, and I don't want it to just go out in over the top sort of special effects blaze of glory, which I'm gaining more confidence that he won't. But yeah, it wasn't it's not had built the same hype with me as the last one did. So thanks for watching, guys. Yeah, that's my review, my sort of review and response about Spider-Man 3, and I'll catch you later.